Hi guys, welcome to Love and Lust audiobooks channel, updated daily with great audiobooks. So please subscribe to me if you don't want to miss it. Well, let's go to read this book, The Lush Experience, chapter 41 to 50. Chapter 41, Declarations of Love. 2 weeks had passed since my date with Anton, and during that time I'd gone on plenty more dates, both with him and with Luke.
Wow.
There was only a little more than a week left of my Lush experience, and yet I still hadn't chosen one of them. It wasn't from lack of trying or even because of my job distracting me, though. The completed draft of Worn Down Stones was finally going through its final check, and I would soon see the sample print. I had finally managed to finish it and was so proud of myself. I had sent the last chapter last night, and Andre had even approved it. Right now, they'd have a few people read it, while me and the artist would start to finalize a cover design. I was so excited, I could barely wait. Not the point, though. The point was that my bad habit was really starting to shine through, and I could tell that my lack of indecision was vexing for both of my matches. I suppose the big problem was that I liked both of them. I really liked both of them, and I knew making the choice was going to hurt. Those matchmaker shows got something right when they had everyone crying in every episode, because I felt like I was ready to set off the waterworks at any second. Would I get lucky and things end all right like they did with Charles, or was I going to have a drama like I did with Rob? God, at this point, I would rather die than have another situationship like the one Rob and I had. That was just bad. That was probably what was scaring me the most and making me so indecisive. I knew just how bad this could go, yet I had to just let things play out, for better or for worse. If they reacted poorly, then that's what was going to happen. I couldn't control it. I was going through color options for the publishing, caught on the decision if the cover should have metallic embossing or if I should just go for an attractive color when my phone dinged. It was Luke saying he was here. What, outside my door here? I sent back a question mark, and he confirmed that yes, he was here. Then I heard a knock on my door. He was definitely here. A few days ago, both Luke and Anton were invited into my apartment recently for simple dates where they stayed the night. It was nice with a sleepy morning following that. It was movie date night, only we weren't at the movies, but in my apartment. I finally convinced Luke to have a casual date and took the opportunity to invite him into my apartment. Luke, complimenting my bookshelves that were filled almost to the brim with books, almost felt like he was fishing for brownie points, since I knew I owned an excessive amount of reading material, but I freely gave those brownie points away. We had some classic DVDs at the ready, cans of soda, and even made our own popcorn. Luke had brought these fancy little chocolates in replacement of corner store box candy, but I couldn't be too upset. So you don't own a popcorn machine, you make it in a pot? Luke asked, seemingly fascinated by the process. His eyes never left my hands as I made popcorn in the biggest 25-quart pot I had, while I set him to melt at least a stick or two of butter. You know, the scary thing is that I can't tell if you mean like a hand crank pot or a full-out machine like from the movie theaters. I mused. I usually just buy it or have microwave popcorn, Luke admitted. Then you're in for a treat. Real butter and salt on popcorn is so unhealthy, but so good. I beamed. Then my microwave proceeded to backfire, spluttering before it died. Luke looked panicked, unsure what to do. I broke down laughing so hard I had to hold onto the counter and shove the pot to the unlit burner so I didn't ruin the popcorn. Did you not put a cup of water with it? What? It doesn't melt butter very well. I wheezed, trying to keep it together and failing while Luke looked sheepish. So you put one mug with butter and another with water. It's a bit old. Well, now I feel silly. Juan, don't worry. It was cute. I chuckled, pressing a kiss to his cheek. I finally straightened back up, pulling out another mug as I put the popcorn back on the fire. Just add water. This time, I winked. After the popcorn fiasco, it turned out to be a very sweet and intimate date where we fell asleep, cuddling on the couch with the opening screen, looping until I managed to wake up first. I took the opportunity to be sickeningly domestic and made us French toast for breakfast. Luke then tried to convince me I made some of the best French toast he ever had, but I think he was just trying to butter me up, like the popcorn. Either way, it was a lovely date, even though he had to hurry out to get back to managing the hotel. They were trying to expand to another location, but first, they needed the land before beginning construction. So negotiations were going on continuously. My date with Anton at my apartment was similar, but instead of watching movies, we had dinner together. However, dinner consisted of making and showing off our favorite childhood meals and snacks. We were trading stories for a while, so it felt like a natural progression to share more than just memories. All right, it's a bit ironic I made these, but I promise they're not poisonous. That's not ominous at all. Anton chuckled, holding a little golden muffin in his hand as I slathered soft butter onto it. I then finished it off with a heavy dose of turbinado sugar. It looks like what you'd expect the version of a very American scone to be. Oh, hush and try the muffin. Anton slowly took a bite, and I could almost feel him wince at the crunch of sugar against his teeth. It tastes very American. Yes, well, it was my grandma's blueberry muffin recipe from the 70s or something. Save for the blueberries, of course, I smirked. Of course, he repeated, looking amused. You don't like it, do you? Sorry, love, not something I'd consider having with a cuppa. He smiled apologetically, but I just waved it off. Well, they can't all be winners. I'm still surprised that the bangers and mash are just potatoes with sausage and gravy. It tastes strangely familiar. Not sure if I'm in love with the onion gravy, though. No, I suppose not. It's box gravy, by the way. I knew it from Tom's, I exclaimed. Anton's eyes widened. Yes, how do you know that? I buy their mushroom gravy for Thanksgiving, but I hate their onion gravy. Well then, no, it's okay, I stated, putting a hand on his arm. The rest of it was good. No, it's all right, Anton replied dramatically. I can see when me and my gravy aren't wanted. No, come on, what if I try the baked beans and toast? Will I earn your forgiveness then? He sighed. I suppose it depends on your answer. Now you're making me worried. Can I possibly entice you to stay with dinosaur chicken nuggets? A hard bargain, but you have yourself a deal, Anais Crawford. He grinned. We shook on it, trying not to break then and there, but I was already stifling. Giggle. I also learned that I didn't like British baked beans on toast, while we both agreed that dinosaur chicken nuggets just brought back memory. It was fun, even if Anton tried to convince me that I needed to try a real Scotch egg and he refused to eat pickled chips on principle when I brought it up. Anyways, I wasn't expecting anyone, but I wasn't dressed like a hobgoblin and my hair wasn't a rat's nest, so I went to answer the door. Luke, what are you doing here? I asked, greeting him with a hug and a kiss on the cheek. There was a large bouquet of blush-colored roses in his arms along with a little velvet case in his hands, not ring-sized, thank God, but almost as big as a box of chocolate. I came here. Before he could finish, the elevator dinged, and there was Anton with his own bouquet of bright red roses. Shit, the silence in the hallway could have killed. I wasn't expecting any of this today, but Luke, this is Anton, this is Luke. I introduced them, gripping the edge of my door so hard. I was surprised it didn't crack. I wondered who your other match was. I'd say it's a pleasure, but I think we're both here for similar reasons. Anton noted. They shook hands in that polite way businessmen do when they hate each other's guts, but are in public. Anton Galahad, Luke Owens, and yes, I suppose we are here for the same reason. Anais, I jolted as I was addressed. I know our Lush Experience is coming to an end soon, but I've loved spending time with you, being with you, and learning more about you, and I hope we can continue to do so, which is why I hope you'll choose me as your final match. With that, he handed off the bouquet and opened the velvet case he had, showing off a diamond and amethyst necklace. Not one of those pretty fancy little mall ones either, but something that was probably worth as much as a car. Oh dear, I felt faint, but then I had another bouquet being handed to me along with a smaller velvet case. Anton had in his pocket with an emerald bracelet. Anais, I know our time together hasn't been long, but you're someone I want to have in my life, someone I can laugh with, relax with, and I want to have a future with you, which is why I came here with the same hope. That you'll choose me as your final match at Tet. So, it's Mayday, abort mission. They wanted me to choose one of them. Of course they did. It was very understandable given everything that had happened. But here and now, they already went out and bought their own roses. How was I supposed to just give one back? I'm extremely flattered, and I know I've been slow in giving you both an answer, but can we not do this here? I asked meekly. It's a lot of pressure, and you're both kind of putting me on the spot. Oh, yes, of course. Apologies, Anais Anton said, taking a step back. Yes, this wasn't what I expected either. When I came over, though, I suppose I should have warned you a bit sooner, Luke added with a light chuckle. They both looked at each other, seeming to realize how forceful this situation almost seemed, and backed off. I understand that you both want an answer, and I'll give you one, both of you. I like both of you, I won't lie about that. Getting to know the two of you has been amazing. But I know that I can't keep doing this, and basically stringing you along. So if it isn't too much of a bother, would either of you mind going on one last date, one more date together, and then I'll tell you my answer? Privately, we were not doing the whole I choose you over this person all together, like we were trying to film a drama. I was not about that. No, I'd be doing that privately. That's agreeable, Anton nodded. Text us when you have a date in mind. Luke replied. I will. They said goodbyes, leaving me with the bouquets and gifts. And while Luke took the elevator, Anton took the stairs. I stepped back into my apartment, closing the door and locking it for good measure before I leaned against it and slowly slid down. I ended up sitting on the ground with my face buried in flowers when I really needed a pillow. What timing, what tension, what pressure. Oh my God, it was like they planned it for maximum stress and drama. Message received, though I was taking too long and they weren't going to wait forever. Now I had to set up 2 dates with the sole intention of figuring out who I was going to end up with. So no pressure or anything. This was expected, though. I either chose someone or I didn't, and I was choosing. So I was going through with this. I'd go on nice dates, then set up one last meeting to tell them my decision. That way there was no bragging between the two of them or whatever guys did when they won the girl. My phone buzzed and I groaned, pulling it out, seeing I got texts from both guys. Damn, they were in sync today. And I says I have a place in mind for our last date. Please tell me when you'd like to go, 'cause Anton texted and I hummed. Well, that was one less decision, but the place looked to be a rather fancy restaurant. And I'd say, I'm free these days, just tell me where you'd like us to go, 'cause Luke said, placing the pressure back on. I texted back Anton first, and he was free Wednesday, so I'd be going on my date with him. Then I'd have my date with Luke, so things would work out scheduling-wise. I needed to think about what I was going to wear. I needed to think about where Luke and I were going to go. I was sick with excitement and anticipation. My Lush experience would soon come to an end. It was almost sad in a way. I'd gone into this thinking nothing much would come with it when so much did. I'd made peace with my ex, even if that peace was that our relationship was permanently over. I'd met amazing people, along with my favorite artist, and was going to have a wonderful boyfriend after all of this. Right now, I had to actually get to that point in time. Well, I said shakily, gripping the bouquets tighter as I stood back up. Time to get to work. First things first, however, I needed a vase. Chapter 42, the final date. The place that Anton was taking me to was called Stella. It was a restaurant that specialized in contemporary food along with molecular gastronomy. An extremely fancy place, and somewhere I had never been before, both the location and type of eatery. The bracelet Anton had given me was an emerald tennis bracelet. It was very pretty, but tennis bracelets were notorious for catching along tassel or any fabric that was a bit on the delicate side. That killed half of my nicer outfits instantly. So I pulled out a tea dress from my closet that had thicker fabric than some of my other dresses. It was a teal plaid color that made the cold of the bracelet pop, and I paired it with some black heel. Since it was our last date, I tried to go all out, especially with my makeup. My eyeliner was on point today, and I don't think I'd ever managed such a nice smoky eye before. I felt confident even if the nerves were there. Anton was pulling out all the stops because the moment I stepped out of my apartment, a car was waiting to pick me up and drive me to the restaurant. Sans Anton. I was curious as to where he could be, but I didn't worry too much seeing as he was still texting me. It wasn't a very long drive. The restaurant was located in the city, and the preemptive research I did on the location told me the name Stella wasn't just for show. They had a celestial theme going on, though it was so upscale, but it was hard to find anything about it. There wasn't much of an online presence beyond a few critic reviews that had the place highly rated. Of the photos it was of the kitchens and some of the dishes they worked on, which looked more like works of art than regular dishes. When I stepped out of the car, I realized why Anton wasn't with me. He'd gone ahead to prepare another bouquet and was waiting for me at the entrance. Anais, you look lovely tonight. Anton lifted my hand, pressing a kiss to the back of it before handing over the bouquet of flowers. It was a smaller one filled with sweet peas and May lilies, but it was so pretty. Thank you, and you look rather dashing in your suit. I noted. The tweed suit made for an impressive and handsome figure, and when Anton smiled, I felt a bit weak. It felt like we were on our first date again. I quickly thanked the driver before we headed up to the restaurant. It was on the top floor of a skyrise, the ceiling carefully domed. But it wasn't made of glass. As we stepped out of the elevator, we were met with a short hallway that had little golden sculptures and impressive marble vases, all on black pedestals. Grecian in design, maybe most of the sculptures seemed to be depictions of gods and goddesses. I was certain that one near the doors to the restaurant was supposed to be Dionysus. The inside itself as we entered the restaurant was rather jarring. However, instead it was made of metal and mimicked an observatory as celestial bodies and lights danced across the ceiling. Stella, huh? How fitting. It was a beautiful, majestic sight that left me nearly breathless. A few other guests were dining as well, and we were given a table to the side, which gave us a rather impressive view of the ceiling without having to tilt our heads back too far. So what made you choose this place? I asked, setting my flowers to the side in a free seat.
I thought that I should take you somewhere nice for our last date, Anton began.
The owner of the restaurant knows my father and was happy to open up a table for us. He also makes the best desserts, and I know you have a sweet tooth. Water and wine were brought to our table, along with the first appetizer, despite not ordering at my confused expression. Anton chuckled. The menu is already set. I have us booked for all 12 courses, and each one comes with a unique drink. I see. Do they have a list then for what's being served? They have one online, he noted. Their menu is preset for the month. I believe the theme is seafood, though. I looked at the first appetizer, which was shaped like petals of a flower and a light drizzle of sauces, and didn't look like seafood at all. All right, a surprise then. I would prefer to know what I was eating, but I didn't think I'd be eating anything too outlandish. The first appetizer was a seafood dish, just some type of carpaccio, which I learned after the first bite. It came paired with a little bit of white wine. The second dish was some type of shrimp toast, which I didn't realize was shrimp toast instead of a regular toast until I bit it. Next was a ceviche with a fish I couldn't quite place, but it was spicy, which was probably why it was paired with a fruity cocktail. Then there was some type of squid cracker, and after that, I gave up trying to figure out what each dish was. They were certainly all surprises. I would have looked them up online, but photos of the food weren't allowed. It was a dining experience only, and I didn't feel like getting yelled at for having my phone out. After the fifth drink, I started to only sip at them. It was far too much alcohol, even if the chef had portioned it out for the guests before. I'd be ending the night with the equivalent of far too many glasses if I continued to drink every last drop. By the time the 10th course came, I was already full, which hurt because it was the start of dessert. It was an artistic delight of bright colors, delicate little flowers, and little cubes of cake with dollops of cream and syrup. I almost cried from only being able to take a single bite of the last 3 dishes without exploding. But by the end, I felt a bit like a turducken far past a Thanksgiving turkey. Then they brought us more wine, like an after-dinner drink, and I had to request water. Are you all right? Anton asked me, drinking down his glasses without any trouble. He didn't even look tipsy. It's just a bit too much alcohol, I waved off. How did you manage to drink every single glass? I asked Anton, a bit awed and shocked as he calmly sipped his wine without any trouble. Most of the dinners back home pair a drink with each dish, so I suppose I'm used to the amount. He shrugged. So the dinners are all similar to this. He nodded. My mother likes to host her friends, and it gives us all an excuse to spend time together, though the fare is more simplistic. She's curious about if I'll end up with a partner after all of this. He stated, "Oh, I don't think I told my mother about the Lush Experience." Anton took a sip of his drink and tilted his head to the side slightly. "Why not?" he asked gently. "Why not?" "Well, for one, I don't think I wanted my mother to know I was basically on a tamer, richer version of The Bachelorette, or that Rob came back into my life only to fuck things up. And she certainly didn't need to know that I let his ex into my apartment and ended up comforting when I didn't really let her in to begin with. I loved my mother, but there were just some things I didn't want to tell her about that I could tell my friends but couldn't tell her. There's been a lot of drama with this whole thing, so I didn't want to worry her," I answered. It was partially true anyways. I'd gone through enough drama to last me a lifetime. "I understand," Anton stated, reaching across the table to take my hand. "I'm sorry you had to go through all of that. Anais, truly." I smiled softly. "Thank you. I hope this date is helping take your mind off things somewhat," he replied. It's been an experience and I've enjoyed myself. Anton grinned. Good, I'm glad. After Anton finished his wine and paid the bill, we headed back down to where the car was waiting for us. Neither of us should be driving, so having a car pick us up was great foreplanning. We sat pressed shoulder to shoulder, listening to soft jazz over the radio, both of us a bit too tipsy and full to do anything more than bask in each other's presence. When I looked out the window again, I realized that we had stopped outside my apartment. I didn't want to leave. I missed Anton when he was gone, and I wasn't exactly sure when I'd see him again. Let alone if it be a day that would end on a good or bad note. I wanted to relish in this moment and keep pushing aside the decision, but one needed to be made. I knew that. Anton turned down the music, and we sat in the car for a while before he spoke. Anais, I have a question, he started. Have you ever considered traveling? Traveling? I repeated, like for a vacation. He shook his head. No, as in staying somewhere for months on end. I looked at Anton, and his eyes were focused solely on me, his pupils dilated. Whether it was from the alcohol or something else, I wasn't sure. I've been thinking I miss you terribly when I'm away, and I can't imagine how it'll be the next 4 months. I know I don't leave for a little while, and I know you feel the same in missing me. That's why I ask, if you choose me as your final match, please consider the idea of coming with me. His eyes never left mine, and I found myself unable to look away. Also, I swallowed. Honestly, I wasn't expecting that at all, and I couldn't really answer, at least not right now. Going on an extended trip for all months? That was another matter entirely. Only in choosing Anton, it'd be one I'd have to consider. Our relationship would always include time apart or time abroad. I opened my mouth to speak when Anton reached across the seat and cupped my cheek. Don't answer. Now sleep on it and tell me when you've made your final decision, all right? I don't mind waiting, especially for you. Man, he was making this harder. I closed my mouth and nodded. Then Anton closed the gap between us and placed his lips on mine. It was soft at first, delicate, but then it grew hungrier. The alcohol had gotten to me already, and judging by the way Anton breathed, it had a small effect on him too. His tongue quickly found mine, and his hand gripped my top, pulling me closer to him. I leaned across the car console, trying to get as close as humanly possible to him. Then, angered with the intrusion, I undid my seatbelt and positioned myself for easier access. Anton groaned with the movement and moved his hand to my hair, gripping it in his hold. Holy hell, this was escalating. Was I about to really have sex in a car? This was not what I was expecting tonight, but I also wasn't complaining. On our previous dates, Anton was a perfect gentleman. However, with the way he was grabbing me, I knew he wanted to explore. I went to reposition myself again, my neck complaining from its angle, when Anton broke the kiss. His eyes were full of desire, and his lips red. Both of us were breathing heavily. What's wrong? I asked, already missing his touch. Anton looked around outside and then back at me. I want you, Anais, he began with a chuckle, but, right here might not be proper. I looked outside and suddenly remembered. We were outside my apartment in the middle of a residential street. Right. I laughed at the realization, and when I settled down, made a choice I knew I was choosing with my body. Come inside. Then I said, biting my lip. Anton blinked, pausing for a moment, and then took a hold of my cheek. God, I'd love to, but I want to save that special moment for when you make your decision. I hope you understand. I nodded. I did. It was understandable, and I appreciated him being so honest. He really was the ideal man, and he was making this 10 times harder. Okay, can I at least get one more kiss before I head in? Anton smiled. Of course, he leaned in, planting a soft and longing kiss on my lips. before pulling away once more. "Till I see you again," he stated. I grinned. "Until I see you again," I repeated. Then I got out of my car and headed upstairs to my apartment. Chapter 43. Scoping the competition. For my last date, the idea struck me after my date with Anton. I jotted down a note and went to sleep afterwards, but the thought still lingered when I woke up. I decided that I was going to go through with it while holding on to my backup plan. I had 3 days to plan it, which wasn't much, but I managed to do so, even if it did feel a little cliché. I wanted to at least try to make this a good date, despite how nervous I was. Luke had taken me on such amazing dates that, despite how nice the ones he had with me were, when I planned them, it just felt lackluster in comparison. So I wanted to at least try and make this one memorable. Instead of a dress or anything overly fancy, I was wearing a pencil skirt and blouse. As much as I wanted to wear the necklace Luke had gotten for me, it was a little fancy for what I was planning. It was prudent that I dressed up at least a little nicely. When I texted Luke the location of where he should meet me, he sent a lot of question marks and laughing emojis, but agreed to our meeting spot on Saturday afternoon. Luke met me outside of the rival hotel that competed with the Regal, the Queen's Hotel. 4-star. It was a beautiful resort hotel with a rooftop pool and a long list of amenities. It was also the place where we'd have our date. Was it a bit ridiculous to take a hotel owner to another hotel, especially his rival? Yes, but there was a method to my madness. I'll be honest, I thought you were pulling my leg for a moment when you suggested we meet here, Luke said dryly, his blonde hair now black, though he confirmed it was a wig instead of being dyed. I almost didn't, but I don't exactly own a hotel to show off to you, so I thought, hey, since you're searching for other locations to start another branch, why not go to a few different hotels and judge them, like a tour, but please say something you're making me think this was a bad decision. The silence was agonizing, and for a moment I worried I had made a mistake in attempting such a date. "Nah, Nanto, I never thought to do something like this," he chuckled, shaking his head, looking amused and fond. My parents owned so many resorts and locations that we never had to stay in a hotel that wasn't our own. After I got mine, it became sort of like my office as well, so I've never been to another hotel, especially not a rival's. I'm actually looking forward to this. That's good then. I breathed out a shaky sigh of relief before taking his hand and grinning. "So, would you like to see our room first or get lunch first?" I had a few ideas in mind to try out their facilities, but I'm still a bit lost on what we should do. Papa, let's see the room first. Before heading down to lunch, I'm gonna judge the room design, so I hope you're okay with me being hypercritical. I smiled. I'm actually looking forward to it. Before this, I had realized after a few dates that Luke hadn't just managed to pull of being a successful hotel owner at such a young age because of his parents, but because he was very passionate about the whole thing. From a business standpoint and from a connoisseur standpoint, he knew it all. He told me how, as a child, he'd hold business meetings with his toys and stuffed animals about the teddy bear mints, ordering the sheets for the bedrooms, or how that staff member spilled an entire tray worth of food on one of the guests. Luke enjoyed running his hotel in the way a restaurant owner loved to cook because they were passionate about it. I understood in a way I was passionate about writing, and not everyone was. Luke was just passionate about hotel. He was very fired up about the art pieces on display in the room I got for us, and it was wonderful to hear him speak so much about something he loved doing. I mean, I understand that it's easier to just get a couple hundred of the same print for the room, But where's the variety, the sophistication of having artwork or something unique to focus on? Yes, it's a bit expensive, but I can see why they're missing their last shot. The absolute shade this man was throwing at his rival had me taking notes. It was funny too, especially since it was from a professional standpoint and not just some personal feeling. I couldn't contribute to the conversation as much as I would like, but it was absolutely fascinating to listen to Luke speak about the smaller details that went into running a hotel and things he noticed, like how the curtains were always some sort of thick fabric to block out light. That a mini fridge in each room was usually stocked with free drinks and snacks in a higher-end building, while bathrobes were an absolute must for any proper hotel because they were often expected. When people pay for an expensive hotel room, you don't just have to provide them with a good experience, but good service too. That means treating the guests very well, so they feel like the amount of money they paid was well spent. So oftentimes there'll be free services provided to them. My hotel offers guests champagne upon arrival along with chocolate to make it feel more welcoming as other staff handles their luggage. There's a lot of steps to taking care of the guests in your hotel. I mused, does it get tiring having to handle so many little details? Quite the opposite, actually. I find it fun trying to up the experience my hotel can provide. I don't know why I've never done this sooner. While I hate the lack of artwork in the room, their bathroom layout is rather nice. I giggled as Luke showed off the door to the bathroom that also doubled as the door to the toilet closet. It was rather ingenious to keep two doors from bumping into each other. After we poked fun at the room, we headed down for lunch, where Luke ordered the steak and a bottle of expensive wine while I ordered a pasta dish and an appetizer for us to split. Meat's tricky since it depends on the quality of the cut, along with the quality of a chef. You can ruin a good steak by cooking it poorly wine despite its price. Also, doesn't guarantee it's good, but they seem to have their own villa for it. Luke took a sip of the offered drink before making a face. Is it bad? The opposite. Now I need to think about doing something similar. Well, the hotel's already like its own brand, isn't it? I'm sure you could think of something unique to do. Our food came and the steak was just shy of a perfect medium rare and slightly under-salted in Luke's opinion. While my pasta was rather rich, though I suspected as much by ordering something with a truffle cream sauce. Afterwards, we tried out the spa they had with the sauna and private pool area, and we debated what would be good to have in the hotel he built next. I was surprised my opinion mattered to him so much, seeing as I knew so little about the subject. But Luke listened to every little thing I had to say, like how the surprise service fee after staying at a hotel was. It's free. They already gave me a number. Why were they suddenly charging more at the end with some random charge coming out of nowhere? Absolutely ridiculous. After the pool, we headed back up to our room and ordered room service for dinner, which came in those classic silver-domed trays along with the table they set up for you. Dinner was also good this time. We tried the burger and fries they offered on their menu along with a risotto dish that we both agreed was slightly dry. This was fun, much more fun than I ever thought it would be. Luke smiled, swirling a glass of wine in his hand. This time, he tried the white wine from the hotel's vineyard and was also huffy. It was a good one. I'm glad you've taken me to a lot of amazing places for our dates and given me such wonderful experiences that I really wanted to make sure you had fun on this one. I was a bit worried you wouldn't enjoy it, so I had a backup plan just in case. Oh, and what was it? A water park, though, seeing as you literally own one of the nicest pools in the city. I don't think it would met your standard. I'll let you in on a secret, he whispered. I hate water slides. Oh my God. I know he was laughing at my horrified expression. A jerk. You wouldn't think it, but I haven't been fond of them since I got stuck in one when I was 8. It took half an hour for them to get me out, and it was a horrible experience all around. I've hated them ever since. I almost took you to a water park, I said, covering my mouth. But you didn't. I suppose you didn't have a backup for the backup. He teased, but he was right. No, I did not. Luke reached across and put a hand over mine. It was a lovely day to Anais. Don't fret. It was very thoughtful of you, and I appreciate all the time and effort you put into it. How about we get ready for bed? I'll put the table outside and call for someone to get it. All right, do you want to watch a movie or do something else? With a soft chuckle, Luke pulled me into his arms and pressed a soft kiss to my lip. How about both? Let's see how long we'll watch the movie, if they have any decent ones. They did have a few decent movies, and we put one on, but it quickly became background noise as we started to make out, wanting to kiss, to touch. Is the bed quality enough for you? I asked, gasping as fingers dipped under the robe I was wearing, brushing against my inner thigh and making everything feel even hotter. Let's find out, shall we? Luke grinned roguishly. He leaned into me and pressed his lips to mine. Everything inside me lit up, and my body instantly responded. Soon our embrace turned heated, and Luke pushed my robe off my shoulders. I loosened the tie and shrugged it off, tossing it to the side. Luke was next. With practiced ease, I moved my fingers to the base of his shirt and pulled it off his body. God, I was one lucky woman with both of my matches. Not only were they kind and gracious, they were each attractive as hell. I moaned at the sight, and Luke smiled devilishly at me, pulling me back into him. We explored each other's mouths, barely coming up for air. And before I knew it, Luke was also naked, and I was straddling him. I looked down into his eyes, seeing him gazing at me with not hunger, but rather a soft admiration. What I smiled. Luke blinked softly and then reached a hand to my face. Nothing. You're just beautiful, he noted. And that was all it took. I was instantly hooked. I knew this night would make things much more difficult when it came to making my choice. But right now, I didn't care. I wanted Luke and everything he had to offer me that night. Chapter 44, looking forward. Notice your Lush experience will end in 7 days. Please fill out the necessary forms to end your Lush experience and make your decision about your final mat. If there are any questions, please contact us for further explanation. If you're ending your experience without a final match, then please fill the other document that's been enclosed in a link at the bottom of this document. How polite for a message that was basically telling me to hurry the fuck up. Just like everyone else, really. The Lush app really was on point though, and wouldn't let you forget anything. I had already scheduled my last dates with Luke and Anton, but I still didn't have an answer, and it was starting to feel like the decision was killing me. It shouldn't be so hard, but it was. Love, why do you have to be so realistically complicated like a trashy romance novella? Why couldn't you just be simple, like a coin flip? I was not going to be deciding who I'd end up in a relationship via coin flip, though. Despite that, I couldn't even decide normally, so instead of agonizing over the decision inside my apartment, I chose to do it outside. With worn-down stones in its final phases, I didn't have too much work to worry about, so I was taking a walk in the park. While scenic walks weren't usually what I did, I had to get out of my apartment to help clear my head. Otherwise, I'd just spiral and trap myself in a string of looping questions. The park itself was one with a big children's playground, so there were families and screaming children around, a decent distraction at the moment. There was even one of those ice cream trucks nearby, so I had gotten a rocket pop, the taste as nostalgic as it was artificial. I watched children beg their parents for an ice cream, one even crying because he couldn't have one. I could have a future like this, but funny enough, it was the one thing I didn't really worry about. Think about. Children weren't something I really had on my mind. I suppose I never found the right partner for it either, but I was focused on my career instead of starting a family, and now I was focused on having and growing a relationship. I just didn't see myself in that sort of lifestyle yet. Maybe one day, but certainly not now. I don't think I really discussed such a thing with Anton and Luke either, but that felt like a more serious conversation. There was still a lot I didn't know about Anton and Luke too, but I should know enough about them to make a decision. Shouldn't I? I could try and be as logical and critical of my relationships with them as could be. I could list all the pros and cons and patiently run through every possible scenario that could happen, whether things went right or wrong. But none of that mattered because emotions were illogical and uncontrollable. Who would be better for me? That was something I couldn't answer no matter which way I compared everything. But how could I compare two people who were so intrinsically different? Once I thought Rob and I were perfect for each other. Even when we met again, I thought he could make me happy, which was of course the exact opposite of what happened. And I'd been blinded and hit with almost instant regret in the aftermath. But again, emotions were very powerful and overwhelming. I was a bit disillusioned about being a perfect couple, but I still wanted to choose someone who wouldn't do that. Not that I thought they would. Hindsight. That's why I was out in a park, eating a crummy popsicle and hoping the answer would hit me like one of those frisbees the kids were tossing. Today was a bit colder than usual, almost enough to need a sweater. We were hitting the tail end of summer, which was funny because it felt like it had been much longer than a mere couple of weeks. It felt like I spent a year and a day in the Lush Experience, and despite everything that happened and all the tears I cried, I think I'd miss it, and all the opportunities it brought me once it was all over. When I first met Luke and Anton, I was a bit surprised to have them as my matches. They were such renowned people with such incredible backgrounds and doing amazing things, but they thought I was amazing too, and then it made my heart flutter that they would believe. So, on each of our first dates, I was so nervous, but after slowly getting to know them, we grew closer, becoming friends and now lovers. Every time we spent together, I loved every second of it, and I knew they felt the same. They both wanted me to choose them. No, they both expected me to choose them. I sighed heavily as I sat down on one of the park benches, trying to relax and not groan like I was dealing with 1,000 years worth of exhaustion. My fatal flaw really was my indecisiveness. Damn it. I wanted to call someone to talk about this whole thing, but that wouldn't do anything. I needed to make this decision personally, not get talked into something. And I hesitantly looked at it, sighing in relief when it was just Andre. The day I was relieved, it was my editor calling instead. Hello, Anais Crawford speaking. You know who it is. Stop answering like that. He huffed. I rolled my eyes at Andre's snappy tone. All right then, pure business. You have any good news for me? Or are you calling to crush my spirit? First off, shut up. I can practically hear you wallowing from across the phone. Second, yes, the test covers have been created and will be sent over to you. Check your email and approve one for print. Third, they want to know if you're going to make a sequel to Worn Down Stones. I hummed at that. With Weathering Storm being a bestseller, they were expecting Worn Down Stones to do the same, and if it did, they'd probably request a sequel to continue on with the momentum. I mean, I could, but I feel like right now is a good place to end it. As much as I loved writing both books, I think I'd just be drawing it out if I tried to make another sequel. It's probably best to start something new. I see, Anton noted. I'll tell them then. Do you have any outlines I can present them? One or two that are completed, a few more that are in the works that they might like. What about that one romance outline I'm not supposed to know about? He asked. Yes, that one that was supposed to be inspired by this whole experience of mine. It needs a bit of cleaning up, but I could send it to you now to look over. Do that, he responded. Things were silent for a minute. So silent, I thought he hung up. But then I heard him breathe before speaking in a more soft and friendly tone. Are things okay? And mean it. Oh God, I must be in the thick of it and drowning if you're asking that. I replied with horrified realization that I was in far too deep in my struggle. Then drowned Andre snapped, returning to his usual self. You just wrote a book about relationships. Why is this so hard for you? My characters weren't in love, Andre. They were platonic. I reminded him, that's not how people will read it. I hated how he was right. There was chemistry between my characters, even if I hadn't really written a romance. I'll get over everything by next week. My Lush Experience ends then. So, all right, as long as it won't impact your work, the publishers are expecting another bestseller from Worn Down Stones, so you'll have to have something good if you're not going to make another sequel. I'll think about it, I replied. Hey, quick question. Could I do remote work if I lived in a foreign country for half a year? Don't ask stupid questions. You could if you got approval to be a digital nomad, but some countries you can't stay more than 90 days without getting booted. You already work remotely. Do your own research. I see, thanks, June. I'll talk to you later and send that outline when I get... Yes, good luck, Anais. With that, he hung up. I could work overseas. It wouldn't be impossible. I could go with Anton, travel the world, help people. Is that what I wanted, though? I already worked remote most of the time. It wouldn't be too hard to make the shift to overseas, living and working. Just then, a mosquito bit me, and I cursed, slapping my leg. Crap. I grimaced as I wiped down the spot, hoping it wouldn't swell up, even though I knew I'd probably have to ice it or take a hot spoon to it when I got home. I had terrible luck with mosquitoes and would get huge lumps from the damn things. My mother thought I was allergic to them, but no, I just reacted poorly to their bite, which was basically the definition of being allergic, but it wasn't like it would kill me. Another reason why the outdoors wasn't my favorite thing. Then fuck hills, honestly. Oh, it hit me in that moment who my final match was going to be. I felt a bit stupid how simple the answer was and a bit embarrassed that this was what it took for me to figure things out. But I also felt relieved. I knew who I wanted. I knew who I wanted to be with, to try and have a future with. Maybe I really did worry too much. River and the girls were going to laugh at me when I told them about this, but I felt content. This was a choice I wasn't going to regret. It was going to hurt, to be honest. I was going to reject someone that had become a dear friend to me and that I truly did care about. But this was my answer. I checked my phone, staring at the calendar for when I'd have my dates. In a few days, everything would be different, and though I was worried, I couldn't help but look forward to it too. Chapter 45. Goodbye. The dates I had set up were scheduled to happen on the same day. One was a lunch date, and the other was a dinner date. I'd give my answer to Anton and Luke during the... Why schedule them on the same day? So I wouldn't lose my nerve during either of them. And so it wasn't like obvious that they were getting rejected until I could sit down and explain my reasoning. Or at least try to. I was going to have an emotionally charged day no matter what I did, so might as well do it in one go before I chickened out. With my decision made, I wanted to at least try to let the other person down gently and maintain at least a friendly relationship. but Rob had shown me well enough that some relationships just couldn't survive being platonic. I stared at myself in the mirror, managing to smile. Despite my worries, I could do this. But just in case, I slid a pack of tissues into my purse along with the velvet jewelry case. Before heading to the lunch spot I chose. Well, less of a lunch spot and more of a coffee shop that served food, that's where I'd be meeting Anton. It was a cute place somewhere I'd never been before. There were other couples scattered about the place sipping their drinks and chatting. A few people were even working. I had gotten there a bit early and ordered my drink first, just waiting for Anton to arrive. Their coffee was a little bitter, but not too bad. I'd certainly had worse before, and I wasn't really drinking it for the taste. My nerves were through the roof. Maybe I shouldn't have gotten coffee, though. My heart was already about to beat out of my chest, and I didn't need the extra caffeine to accidentally turn it into a heart attack. Anais says, "I hope I'm not late," Anton stated as he entered the building. Well, I just got here a bit early is all. I didn't know what you wanted to drink, so I just got us a few pastries. I see. I'll be back in a moment then, he noted, placing his coat over the back of the chair. I watched Anton walk back toward the counter. He was dressed nicely in another suit. I don't think I'd ever seen him without one. He came back with a cup of tea in one of those to-go containers, taking a seat across from me. You worried me a bit. There's only a few days left before your Lush Experience ends, right? For a moment, I thought you weren't going to choose anyone. Yeah, it wasn't easy to make a choice. I care about both you and Luke, but I figured it out. I really was pushing the clock, though, I admitted, making him chuckle. I think it just shows that you put a lot of thought into our decision. And there's nothing wrong with that. Well, of course I would. I think for something like this, you have to be serious. You can't just figure everything out instantly or just choose randomly. You have to put your whole heart into it. I agree, but you're a bit transparent sometimes, Anais. Am I asked, and Anton smiled softly at me, almost melancholic. Sometimes you're honest, so your thoughts often show on your face. That's why I knew when I walked in, I'm not your final choice. Am I? Oh, Anais, you look like you're about to cry. He was right. Despite how hard I was trying not to, the tears were already coming. Anton moved from his seat to sit beside me, pulling out a tissue and handing it to me. I tried not to outright sob as he tried to comfort me, despite the fact I was breaking up with him. He was being so nice and kind, and here I was rejecting him. It only made me cry harder as I felt worse, but it wouldn't change my decision, not when it had already been made. I'm sorry, Shasha, it's all right. Take your time, he soothed, rubbing my back. I refused to start wailing as I bit my lip. I was being loud enough already. There was another reason I chose this coffee house, and not just because I'd never been here, but because I probably wouldn't be back. So that meant all the people who were seeing me cry would probably never see me again. It took me a while to calm down, and I was very glad I had done my makeup very lightly. I was a wreck. Was I really that obvious? You don't like coffee very much, Anton pointed out, and I looked at my cafe latte. Sorry. I'll admit, I'm sad that you didn't choose me, but is it a bit mean to say I'm happy you're crying over me already? He said, managing to get a surprised chuckle out of me. I don't think so. I really do like you. When I was thinking about our future together, I realized that I didn't want to be apart from you so often, but that I couldn't do what you do. The volunteer work. I think it's wonderful that you do it, and I agree that if I had the opportunity, I'd want to try it, help out and all, but I couldn't do it like you. being gone for months at a time, traveling between places, not settling anywhere. Always on the move, and I can't do that, and I don't think I could make you stay either. I wouldn't want to make you stay. You're so happy when you talk about all the things you do and the people you help. I could never ask you to give that up, your passion. So that's why I understand bloody hell. I didn't expect it to hurt this much. Anton sighed heavily, leaning back in his chair. I was sort of expecting it to hurt this much. I admitted this wasn't my first breakup where I was letting go of someone I cared about. It was certainly less explosive, though. You did blindside me by figuring me out, however. Sorry about that. I wanted to do it gently. I dare say you did. That's on me for not giving you the chance to say it and just ripping off the Band-Aid. Apologies for that. No, if that's what you wanted, then that's... I think I could done it. Stopped going on so many trips, he finally said after a short pause. But you wouldn't have been happy giving all that up. I murmured, and Anton held my hand. No, I probably wouldn't have. He admitted I would have, though. And I care just a bit too much to let you go through with it. After a moment, I reached into my bag and pulled out the velvet case that contained the emerald bracelet. Here, I thought I should give this back to you. I held out the case, and Anton looked at it for a moment before giving me a sad smile and gently pushing it back, refusing to take it. It's yours. I got it for you, and I'd like it if you kept it. Even if we're not together, you're an amazing person. Anais said, you deserve nice things and someone who'll treat you well. Will this guy do that? Yeah, he will. Luke Wood, he had always treated me well from the first date to now, and I don't think he'd stop doing so. All right then, At least I'm losing to Luke Owens. My parents like his family's resorts and always stay there when they don't go to one of their property. I gasped. Oh, and I'll be all right, love. Besides, I'm leaving soon for the next project. You've also given me a few things to think about the next time I look for a partner. I sighed. I hope you find someone who'll love traveling just as much as you do. He smiled softly. Me too. Well, I think I'll head out now, and thank you for such a lovely experience. Anton leaned down, and I met him halfway as we shared one last kiss that was as bittersweet as the coffee I'd been drinking. Goodbye, Anais. Then he left. Not another word exchanged. I left the sweets I bought untouched, leaving the place a few minutes later and driving back home. I might have made a mistake scheduling the dates for the same day. I was already mentally and emotionally drained, but I wasn't changing it now. After I dragged myself inside, I went to the bathroom and washed my face, trying to keep my eyes from swelling so I didn't go to dinner looking like I just cried my eyes out. Even though that was exactly what happened. I didn't think I'd be seeing Anton again. That goodbye felt far too final. We didn't exchange numbers, we didn't promise to meet up again or anything like that. Anton would be leaving the country, and I think that he didn't want to think about this or stay in contact when we couldn't be together like he wanted to. It was understandable, but it still hurt that I would no longer be able to talk to him or see him. However, we didn't fight or break each other's hearts, even if we would have to deal with a bit of heartache after that. I hope you found someone like him who loved traveling and wanted to help people, who could match his passion with the same fervor he had. But I couldn't be that person for him, and he might have been willing to give it up for a relationship. But I could never be in a relationship where the person I loved had to give up. There was love in sacrifice, but not like this, not for this. How could I ask that of him, to let go of part of himself? No, that wasn't fair to either of us. When I was in the park, I realized I wouldn't have been happy traveling, not forever, not for such long stretches of time. Just like Anton wouldn't have been satisfied staying in one place for so long. That's why he couldn't be my final match, and I couldn't be his. Still hurt like hell though. I lost a lover and a friend today. Good luck, Anton, I whispered before opening up my closet and laying out my clothes for tonight's dinner date. Hopefully I'd have some of that luck myself. It was time for my last date with the Lush Experience. Chapter 46. Indulgent. I had pulled out one of my older dresses for the occasion. It was a black dress that cut off above my knee and hugged my curves with a boat neckline, which was similar to a sweetheart neckline, just with off-the-shoulder sleeve. I had specifically chosen this dress because it would go with the necklace Luke had bought me, and I was going to wear it for the occasion. This was a big moment right now. Months of dates and effort culminated together for this moment, and then afterwards, I wasn't quite sure what would happen. This wasn't a fairy tale. Our romance wasn't going to stop right after. In fact, I was fairly certain there'd be even more work necessary for something more serious than what the Lush Experience allowed. But that was why I was going to have a final match. Right? To do just that, learn more, talk more, spend more time together beyond the Lush Experience and what it had offered to be together as a couple. I was so nervous, I almost threw up. The dinner location that I chose was rather simplistic. Just a little Italian restaurant that I used to go to with my parents. I knew Luke liked Italian, though this place didn't have gnocchi. I walked into the restaurant. The lighting was rather romantic, and the setup far less ritzy than some of the other places we've had our dates at. But it was comforting to see a familiar place that wasn't overwhelmingly high class. We even had a private little table in the corner, and I opened the menu but didn't read anything. All the letters were jumbled as I bounced my leg with nervous energy. Come on, Anais, you've done everything else. You can do this. It's good news too. You shouldn't be so nervous. Anais, I thought it was you. It was a voice I never expected to hear again. I turned around as my heart started to beat 1,000,000 miles per second, and there he was. Rob was smiling at me, and I felt like I was going to faint. As I looked around and stood up, he rushed to me and took a hold of my wrist. Wait, please, I just want to apologize. There was no part in my body that believed him, and I almost screamed, but he noticed my reaction and let go of my hand, giving 2 steps back. Sorry, I screwed up again. Big time. Fuck, I keep screwing things up with you. He was so serious, and I still couldn't open my mouth to say anything. Lucky enough, the servers noticed this and started to get closer. I took courage by this. What are you doing here, Rob? Finally, some words from you. Anais, you know I felt horrible for everything, so I had to find you and say how sorry I was. And there it was. He just gave away what he already did wrong the last time. Were you stalking me? He didn't need to answer. His face gave it away. Miss, is everything okay? A server asked while others stood near. Yes, all is fine. I am talking to her. We are just talking. I honestly wanted to believe what he was saying, but the Rob standing in front of me was not even a shadow of what I knew he's used to be. No, you are not supposed to be here, Daily. This time, the voice came from Luke, and I felt a huge sense of relief that he was here. He quickly came to my side and slid a hand around my waist. Rob, leave before the police get here, because I already called them. Rob was far from happy. I could see him seething and his hands into fists. I always avoided being the center of attention, but now everyone at the restaurant was looking at us. His eyes locked on mine for a few seconds that felt almost like an eternity, but he finally made his way out, and I felt myself breathing again as he walked away. Luke's hands landed on my shoulder and calmed me. "I am so sorry," I said to Luke while I looked around and whispered a thank you to the servers. "You have no control over him. You have nothing to apologize for." His words reminded me how true that statement was. To be honest with myself, I felt like his presence worried me, but did not affect me that much anymore. My heart was probably healing, and knowing he did not change his ways helped me let go of him faster. "You are right, and I won't let it bother me more. I promise," seeing eyes, I confessed with a smile on my lips. Rob was not going to ruin yet another date with Luke. I was not allowing him to affect me like that anymore. "If you always get here early, I'm going to start feeling like I'm arriving late." How could Luke be so perfect? I smiled, greeting him warmly. He looked handsome in that navy-colored suit of his. His silver cufflinks glittered in the candlelight, and for some reason, his gaze was so tender and loving tonight that it made me blush. Briefly, Rob came to my mind again, but I vowed not to allow him ruin the new life and new memories I was making with Luke. "Don't you mean right on time? I hate being late, so I always arrive early." "You'd be a delight to have at meetings," Luke told me, making me laugh. "Are you sure? I don't think I'd understand even half of what you'd be talking about." I smirked. "Far better than some of the people who're supposed to be considered good at their jobs." He huffed before smiling. "Enough of that, though. I've never been to this restaurant before, but it looks like it came right out of a little Italian place in the 90s. It's rather charming. Have you been here before?" "Yeah, I used to come here with my family. I know it's not some family-run trattoria or whatnot, but no. I love that you're sharing these places with me. They mean something to you, right?" I just nodded, my tongue feeling heavy as I glanced back at the menu, not seeing anything. It was a good thing I had my usual order memorized. My nerves were leaving me frazzled, but these nerves were all about Luke now. No more Rob. "They have fantastic fried zucchini here," I noted. "We should get some of that then," Luke beamed. "I think I'll try their aglio olio pasta. Salmon with the lemon orzo. An excellent choice. Are you all right, Anais? You look nervous, and I don't think it is due to Rob anymore." "I am. I mean, Eli, I really am transparent." I groaned. How could I be so bad at acting calm? How much of a wreck did I come off as for it to be that noticeable? Either way, it was embarrassing. "You're honest," Luke chuckled, correcting me. "Everyone says that, but that's not always a good thing. This is why I don't plan surprises. People always seem to see right through me." He smiled. "Anais, it's all right. I don't know why I'm so nervous. I suppose I really should just come out and say it." "Luke, would you be my final match?" 'Cause 7 words easy, all I had to do was spit them out. "Luke, I'm not your final match." Luke finished for me, and it took a minute for the words to register. But when they did, they hit me like a physical blow that almost knocked me out of my seat. What? Yeah, I quickly covered my mouth before I could shout inside the restaurant and cause a scene. That was the last thing I wanted. Forget about my nerves, though, because what? I was too stunned to speak. "Oh, does that mean I am?" "Luke, why would I? How would you even think?" Words no longer existed. Despite being a writer, I didn't know a single one. At least not one that would describe this strange Twilight Zone moment I was experiencing. How could that even be a possible conclusion? I was wearing the necklace he got me. We were on a romantic dinner date. I took him somewhere that meant something to me instead of somewhere I'd never been before. Were those signs not transparent, as I apparently was? Well, with that reaction, it obviously wasn't. "You're just rather nervous for choosing me as your final match. Maybe Rob screwed up your plans. You're choosing me as your final match," he asked, slowly starting to smile. "Oh my God. What, it's an honest question," he protested, his cheeks becoming a bit red. I couldn't help it. I started to laugh, burying my head in my arms, shoulders trembling as I laughed so hard that I cried. We were ridiculous, completely and utterly ridiculous. We were both so nervous about something going wrong, worrying that the worst could still possibly happen, that transparent and honest in me was surprising him, like my decision was so strange. Luke, I giggled, wiping the tears from my eyes as I finally managed to calm down somewhat. I'm choosing you as my final match. Not that I'm not ecstatic, but it's coming as a shock after all that he said, clearing his throat and taking a sip of his wine. Hataha, what made you think I was going to tell you the opposite? Well, there was Robbie started and I stopped him. He doesn't exist anymore. My choice is not affected by him. I suppose a part of me was worried that I wouldn't always be able to give you the attention you deserved. Especially when I had work or had to travel somewhere. I know that you aren't very fond of being away from home for too long and like the comfort of a home. Even if I do promise my hotels have some of the best beds you'll find. That is true. They were some of the most comfortable beds I've ever slept on. And Anton, I didn't recognize him, which sounds rude, but I know I'm rather prevalent in the media due to my position, and I know you aren't very fond of the spotlight. You like a more mellow sort of fame M's best-selling novelist. Oh, stop teasing me. He smirked and continued. So while I was hopeful, I knew there were things against me for being your final match. And that's part of why I did pick you as my final match. You're going to make me explain every little detail, aren't you? I certainly wouldn't stop you from telling me all the reasons why I'm so charming. I rolled my eyes at him, expression fond as he gave me a wide, besotted grin. You're thoughtful and patient with me like all the time, even when things get stressful and crazy like with Rob both times. You are understanding, you are kind, even when the whole situation is also hard for you. I know a scene like that isn't good for your image since you are in the media so often. At this, he sighed, and at this, you were accosted in a public space both times and forced to go on a date through emotional manipulation, which turned into the Lush program actually shutting down for a week to deal with that whole situation. Luke deadpan. Yeah, when it was put like that, it sounded rather horrible, and seeing as you went radio silent for a time before that, of course I'm going to be more worried for you. Yeah, that was the thing I grimaced. But moving on from that, I like how attentive you are, and even when you're busy, you still make time for little things like sending me a text or planning something so we can meet up and spend time together. I like that we don't have to go on fancy dates to enjoy being around each other, and how we can talk for hours or not at all. I feel like I can see us together in the future, see a future where there's a us, even if I don't know what that'll be like. I finished shyly. It was a scary, vulnerable thing to lay your heart bare in such a way, open up despite the risk of getting burned and spilling your thoughts. Deep ones to someone else. I had fallen for Luke for so many reasons, but those were only a few of them. He reached across the table and took my hand in his, gentle and sweet, just like when I first met him. I'd like to find out what that'd be like too. He told me in such a heartfelt manner that I really did almost burst into tears. Geez, don't make me cry in the restaurant, Luke. I giggled. Sorry. You don't look sorry at all. You're even smiling. I'm just really happy right now. Besides, despite your words, you're smiling too. Dinner was like a dream, and I felt like I was floating. I was so happy. Luke seemed to be the same, because neither of us could stop smiling and could barely let go of each other's hand to eat. There was a charge in the air, a desire that had us restless as we exchanged. looks across the table, our legs hooked together intimately, like we couldn't stand not to touch each other in this moment. "Enough, Anais, you're not too attached to getting dessert here, are you?" he asked after we cleared our plate. "Do you have somewhere else in mind?" I asked playfully, having half an idea of where Luke was going with this. "I'd be more than happy to get you whatever you wanted back at the Regal if you would like to stay the night. I know it's not quite as homey as your apartment, but I always have a room for you at my hotel." "Him only if we're going to your room." I smiled, my eyes hooded, and Luke returned it with a passionate look. "That can be arranged," he whispered lowly. Then we were paying the bill, quickly heading out, skipping dessert. I'm sure we'd indulge as much as we wanted later. Chapter 47. It's official. Luke's hotel was just as grand as I remembered it as we slipped in through the staff entrances and headed up through one of the maintenance elevators. It was a good thing we did too, because neither of us could keep our hands to ourselves. After finally confessing and officially getting together, there was an uncontrollable desire burning between both of us that had us stumbling through the halls, even though we weren't drunk, trying to continue to kiss, touch as if separating for even a moment would be unbearable. I had only been to Luke's place once before, and it was only for a short breakfast. Nothing as intimate as what we were about to do. He had a grand suite at the top of the hotel. It was almost the entire floor to himself, with an office included and a grand view of the city. The place itself, from what I remembered, was all modern, sleek edges with art pieces scattered about and soft leather furniture tucked into corners along walls. I slid his key card in, and the minute the door closed, I was pressed up against it, caged in by his arms as his kisses left me breathless. It made everything else in the room pale in comparison till I was only focusing on him. "How attached are you to this dress?" Luke asked in a low tone, his breath hot against the shell of my ear, making me shiver. "Not terribly." "Good." And then I heard the tearing of fabric as he ripped the dress right off of me. Ooh. That shouldn't have been as hot as it was, and I moaned into the next kiss while Luke quickly stripped off his jacket and threw off his button-up. His hand ghosted over my skin, palming at exposed flesh and doing their best to take me apart. Before we even got to the good stuff. "Bid now," I demanded. Luke hooked his hands underneath my thighs, hauling me up as I quickly wrapped my legs around his waist so I wouldn't fall. He carried me like I weighed nothing. We made out as Luke brought us to the bedroom. The blinds were open, spilling in soft moonlight and illuminating things just enough for us to see. I yelped when Luke dropped me onto the bed, and I bounced slightly, pouting as he chuckled. However, that amusement was quickly cut off as I slipped my bra off and my underwear. "You have no idea how gorgeous you look right now," he breathed, taking me in and drinking up my visage like he was dying of thirst. I almost trembled under that intense gaze. "Why don't you show me?" Luke started to press kisses to my neck, one hand tangling in my hair as I undid his belt. He stepped out of the rest of his clothes, kicking them to the side as he climbed on top of me, caging me in once more. It felt different than the last time we were together before. It was about pleasure too. But there was something more intense about now, as if we were trying to ensure that the other knew just how serious we were about wanting this. I knew I did. I desperately craved for Luke to hold me and do wicked things to me, as if the pleasure I had now could never be enough. "Luke, more? You're gonna kill me." He choked on a moan as I nipped along his skin, sucking a hickey onto his neck. He reached over blindly, opening the drawer of his nightstand and dropping a few condoms to the side before reaching down between us. "You're all ready, so what?" "Well, you've been teasing me all night. That's your fault." "Is it?" he said, a glimmer of pride in his eyes as he slipped one finger inside of me. I was so wet that it slid in without any resistance, and he quickly added another, making me groan at the stretch. We were both impatient as I grabbed one of the condoms, cursing as it almost slipped out of my fingers. I got it open before blindly reaching down and grabbing Luke's member. His breath hitched as I stroked his hard length. It seemed that we'd both been on the edge for quite some time, and I carefully rolled the condom onto his length. I need you now, he told me hotly. All I could do was nod as Luke pulled out, pressing my legs up. He lined up before sinking inside of me. The stretch burned so good as we both moaned before I wrenched Luke down, connecting our lips into a passionate kiss. I was shaking. It felt so good, pleasure coursing through my veins, and I whined as I came from the feeling, left two on the precipice to do anything but tip over the edge above me. Luke swore before I suddenly squealed as he started to pound into me. It punched the breath from me as my sensitive nerves lit on fire as cried, clinging to him and possibly leaving lines along with shoulders. But not a single part of me wanted him to stop. Instead, I just hooked my legs around his hips and pressed him incessantly deeper, almost demanding him to go harder. Luke was nothing if not a generous lover. He made me see stars as he brought one of my nipples into his mouth and worried the delicate flesh between his teeth. I almost sobbed as the pleasure bordered on this side of too much, and I was coming again as he stilled, grinding his hips as he finished too. Both of us panted, slowly coming down from our highs as Luke carefully eased out and pulled off the condom, tying it off and throwing it away. We looked at each other, and after a moment, Luke grinned, almost smirking as he held up a second condom. Round two. I was a bit too smitten and a bit too willing to have a second round with this man. To satisfy the desire burning between us, throughout the night, we pleasured each other, and I lost count of how many times we went at it or how long we'd gone. But it had been months of us craving the other with a sort of distance still between us that finally dropped tonight. It was hard to do anything but indulge in the pleasure. Slowly, our frantic pace slowed, and our kisses grew sensual and more tender. We were both tired, but we couldn't help but continue. Our hips languidly rolled together, our moans mixing together as we finally came finishing together. There were no words to really describe how we both collapsed down together in bed, exhausted but content. It felt more like I passed out than drifted to sleep. But with my nerves tingling pleasantly and my limbs like jelly, it didn't bother me one bit. Waking up came surprisingly easily, despite everything we did last night, though that was partially because the sun was shining in my eyes through the window. Luke was beside me, an arm thrown over me, and deep asleep. I chuckled before sitting up and blushing at the state I was in. There were hickeys all over my body from our furious lovemaking, and I had more than a few fingerprint bruises from how tightly Luke had gripped me, most of them decorating my hips, but a few along my arms from when we changed positions. The most embarrassing thing had to be that I was still in my heels and wearing my necklace. The rest of me completely naked. I threw my legs over the side of the bed and finally took off my heels, sighing in relief when I undid the straps and got them off. I stumbled to the bathroom, body aching pleasurably while my feet protested their continued abuse. I needed a shower, and I should probably wake up Luke before ordering breakfast or something. But for now, I let him sleep. The hot water was heaven on my muscles as I cleaned up and put on a fluffy bathrobe before rejoining Luke. Someone's up early, he yawned, voice thick with sleep. Sorry, did I wake you? No, don't worry about that. I usually have to get up at this time for work. He stood up, stretching, and I admired the figure he cut, along with the hickeys I had left on him during our passionate lovemaking. Well, before work, how about breakfast? I don't know about you, but I'm starving.
Breakfast sounds amazing. There's a list of numbers near the phone. Call something up and I'll join you in a bit.
He pressed a kiss to my cheek before shuffling to the bathroom while I found the list and carefully placed an order for 2 continental breakfasts. If the staff were surprised to see me when I opened the door, they didn't say anything and very professionally set the table up before leaving. The smell of bacon and maple syrup made my mouth water as I removed the silver lids. I see the foods arrived, perfect timing. Luke came out of the bathroom, hair wet and dressed in his own robe.
Come and join me already so we can start.
I pulled him over to the table and we sat next to each other, eating breakfast together in a gorgeous room after a wonderful night, and it almost didn't feel real. Did I really find someone to be with after everything, all the struggles and worry? Was this really happening? I knew what I could do that would make it feel real. So should we make this official? Are we not already? Luke asked. There's one more thing we have to do. I smiled, getting up and grabbing my phone. I see where you're going with this. Luke quickly grabbed his and we opened the Lush app. Right, definitely. Both of us pressed the button at the same time, locking each other in as our final match, and I snorted as the screen rained confetti and congratulated us. Our Lush experience was officially over. We had found and chosen each other, and I was so excited to see what it would bring us. There were a few things left that I had to do, though. For now, we continued with breakfast, excitedly exchanging each other's number and talking about what we should do next. Here, like this, all soft intimacy and warm companionship. It was everything I wanted, and I knew I made the right decision. A ping from my phone drew my attention. I picked it up as Luke was sharing with me another piece of bacon. Then I read it was my mother's number, and quickly I opened the message to see. The message read, "So Rob just paid me a visit. Can you explain to me what is this all about? You dating many men at the same time and playing with their hearts." Chapter 48, Happy. The drive was rather scenic. I didn't get to appreciate the first time nor the second, but the building really was located in a nice area, and I was greeted by that same worker who just smiled at me politely in recognition and led me up.
Luna is currently in a meeting, but she should be free afterwards. I'm sure she'll be delighted that you're here.
I hope so. I did come by out of the blue. I chuckled, entering her office and taking a seat. I was deeply relieved to note that there were no boxes or whatnot for cleaning the place up. It had been a real worry of mine that poor Luna would lose her job because of things that really were just out of her control. That she was still here took a weight off of my shoulders. It was still running through my mind, the conversation I had with my mother on the phone earlier on. I had to tell her a few things, and the issue of not being able to reveal everything was the hardest part. She asked me to go over to her place to tell her more, and once I told her, I finally finished my sequel book. Because of the new man in my life, she softened and said that he could be a good match for me after all. Inadvertently, her choice of words were extremely accurate. At the end of that call, I was really tired, but I was also relieved that my mother believed in me rather than what Rob had told her on a random texting rant. He really was someone I could not recognize anymore. I set down a container of pastries on Luna's desk and pulled out my phone to wait. Then I heard a door open and close behind me, followed by a few footsteps. I see you've made your final decision too. Congratulations. Thank you, Luna. I chuckled softly, hugging her and greeting her. I brought you some sweets from the bakery I like. Oh, you didn't have to. Nonsense. You've been so helpful during this whole thing, and after that stressful nonsense, Robert put us through, you more than deserve it. Are you still having to deal with that? I wish she sighed, almost collapsing down into her chair before thinking better of it and trying to maintain her professional air. Ms. Fontaine's taking care of most of the legal matters personally with her team of lawyers, but it took ages for us to clean the shop as it was. New programs and procedures are being worked on every day, and we're all a little bit stressed because of it. However, we're all in agreement that that should never happen again. I'm still so sorry you went through that. It's all right, I'll admit it wasn't fun, but I feel strangely better that it's all over and done with. I smiled sheepishly, closure and all that. Then you'll be happy to know that while it's being kept on the down low, Ms. Fontaine is taking him to court, and I don't think he'll win the suit. Either way, he won't be bothering you again, so you can enjoy the benefits of a successful Lush experience. Haha, well, thank you for everything, Luna. Of course, it is my job. I'm just so happy things worked out for you. Ms. Crawford. And anyways, no more of this Ms. Crawford stuff. All right, I noted I did come to give you something else. I was given a curious look as I reached into my bag and pulled out a book with silver letters embossed on the cover and a picture of the sea crashing against a rocky beach. I know you're a bit of a fan, so here the first print was just made. The copies will be mass-produced later, but this was the final, approved form. Luna squealed as I handed over the hardcover copy of Worn Down Stones, which had just gone to print and hadn't even been officially published. I didn't know you finished the sequel. Just recently, too, so it makes sense I'd finally finish it alongside my Lush Experience. When I came here, I wasn't expecting much, but you still ensured I'd have a great time and even encouraged me. So I'm very thankful, Luna. I don't think I would found someone to be with if it wasn't for your help. You're gonna make me cry. She sniffled, quickly grabbing a tissue and dabbing at her eyes. I know you've been in contact with River for a bit, I said teasingly, so make sure she gives you my number, all right? I don't know where my relationship will be heading, but if we ever get married, I'll invite you to the wedding. Ha ha ha, then I'll look forward to it, Anais. With one last hug, I headed out where I was going to if someone hadn't stopped me. If I could have a moment of your time, Miss Crawford. Oh, Miss Fontaine, good afternoon. Is there something you needed me for? Yes, I was gonna call you, but since you're here, I might as well tell you in person. Step into my office for a bit. I nodded. Her office was just one of the meeting rooms on the floor, but seeing as this whole building probably belonged to her, anyway, everything was by right, her office. After we sat down, I cut right to the chase. Well, what was it that you needed to tell me? I wanted to inform you that we finished doing background checks here. Carlos and anyone else who'd been exchanging money behind our clients' backs have been fired, and the situation you were put in shouldn't happen to anyone else. We're implementing new checks and balances as well, so while our program might become a bit stricter, it'll also be a bit safer. I'm glad. I sighed in relief. I know my situation worked out rather well, despite everything, but that was because I found closure in the whole thing. Was that all? No, I also wanted to tell you that I'll be suing Mr. Evans for breaking his contract and a few other things. As a witness, I wanted to inform you that since we've already taken your statement, there's no need for you to come to the court case if you don't want to, even if you are summoned. I thank you, to be honest. I don't want anything to do with Robert anymore. That chapter of my life is over. You've been very kind to me, Ms. Fontaine, and I'll admit, while I was hesitant in the beginning, the Lush experience really was good for me. So despite what happened, I have nothing but praise for your business.
Very well. She hummed, "No, your presence won't be necessary. We have enough evidence." I'm glad that things worked out for you, Anais Crawford. Oh, and expect your gift to arrive in the mail within a week. All right, I chuckled. Thank you for everything, Anais Fontaine. Good luck, Anais Crawford. She really was such a nice woman, I thought, as I got into my car and drove back home, humming to songs over the radio. It was over, and I couldn't help but feel a bit sad. The Lush Experience, the house, the people, they'd all been wonderful, and because of it, I found someone amazing to be with. It was over, but now a new part of my life had started, and I was looking forward to every bit of it. I pulled out my phone as I was heading back upstairs, pressing call. "Hello, I really do sincerely hope you're calling because you have a final match and not because this one also screwed up. You've been practically radio silent." River. Wanted to call, but I felt like I had to make the decision on my final match myself, no outside influence and all that. "Of course you would," she said fondly. "And did I hear that right? A final match, huh? You've chosen someone?" "I have. I almost ran it down to the wire." "As you tend to do. But I think we make each other happy." "That's good. That's really good." And as she sniffled, and I blinked. River, are you crying?" "It's just onions. This whole experience was a lot for you with Rob and everything, but you found someone. And River, don't cry. Hold on. I'm coming over right now." I was sprinting to get back to my car. River lived in the nicer side of town with Marcus, where there were guards at the front desk, and each apartment was as large as a house. Thankfully, I'd been over enough times to be recognizable, so I was led up to River's floor, hurrying inside. "River, I'm here, open up." I buzzed the doorbell a few dozen times until the door finally opened, and there was my friend, a pretty robe over her nightwear, looking tired with red eyes. "Oh, River, I'm fine." "You're obviously not. What's wrong?" I shuffled us over to the couch, snagging a box of tissues along the way. "What's wrong? What's wrong? I basically set you up with your ex twice. How can you just be okay with that?" I sighed. "River, that wasn't your fault." "You say that, but it's not like you don't know that. Luna talks to me." "I know I made a joke about it earlier when I was in her office. You should send her my number, by the way. I think we'll be great friends now that we're not in a business relationship." Of course you would think that, River sighed, rolling her eyes. "She told me all about this singer that you were going to have as a match, and I should have at least checked." Well, come on. How can anyone guess that I could have been matched to Joseph Smith? And get this, I met the man, and he's a fan of my book. Her eyes widened. "When did that happen?" "On another date with a different match. It was the one Robert ruined, wasn't it?" See, this is why no one can convince me. Being so readable is a good thing. Here I was trying to comfort my friend, and somehow it felt like I was actively making it worse. You say what happened was a good thing, that you found someone, and I'm happy for you. And I say, I really am. I just wish you hadn't gotten so hurt from this too. Well, if it makes you feel any better, I was going to get hurt from Rob, no matter what. At least this way, I was probably as safe as I could be with the Lush app, tracking everywhere we went and taking him into custody. That doesn't, she deadpan. Look, River, back then, Rob was good for me. I wouldn't have done nearly as many things as I would if we hadn't been dating, but I also wouldn't be who I was or where I am in life if I had stuck with him. And yes, the whole thing with getting matched with him was a wreck. But at the time, I wasn't over my feelings, and a part of me did still love him until I realized he changed. She looked at me a bit quietly, and I sighed before continuing. We both changed, and I didn't love the person he became. It was relieving to know that we could never go back to what we used to be as much as it did hurt. I didn't need Robert back in my life. I needed someone new who'd fit with who I was now, who'd talk to me, listen to me, and I found that person because you gave me a golden ticket.
So don't cry about this, all right? Not unless they're happy. Tears that I finally managed to get a man for longer than a week.
All right, she huffed, wiping away her tears. I'm not completely convinced, but I'll try. Do you have a restraining order on Rob?
I will, if it makes you feel better. I'm sure if I call Ems Fontaine, she'll add that on top of the other lawsuits. Good, you better.
Yes, I will, feeling a bit better. Marginally, she sighed. My Lush experience wasn't nearly this stressful.
Haha, are you finally going to tell me about it?
Only if you tell me about yours and who your final match is. We still need to see if he's good enough for you. I do have to introduce him so you can meet him with everyone else. Himfa, all right, now I know you stayed friends with at least one of your matches. Tell me about them then.
Well, you know my favorite artist I started?
We talked all night, and when Marcus came home, well, he just looked at his girlfriend's red eyes and greeted me with a nod of his head before ordering River's favorites for dinner. That man was a keeper, and now I had found my own. I couldn't be happier. Chapter 49, just fine. All right, are you ready? I asked, fixing my hair in the hallway mirror. I sincerely hope so. It'll be awkward if they don't like me. I think they'll love you. My outfit was far simpler than usual, just a skirt and blouse, but I had put my hair up in a messy bun and was trying very hard so it wouldn't be too messy. Luke was in a simple outfit too, just a casual two-piece suit. Where we were going didn't require anything too fancy, though we just had to look nice.
That's easy for you to say, honey. They're gonna judge me within an inch of my life today.
I expect I'll have to earn their approval over the parents with the way things are going.
Haha, true, I admit it. But don't worry, I think they'll see how much we like each other and how good we are for each other, and they'll drop the matter entirely. Now come on, otherwise we'll be late.
It was 2 weeks after my Lush experience and 2 weeks being Luke's official girlfriend. He was finally going to meet my friends. We had rented out a place to do brunch together, somewhere cozy, and I was really looking forward to it. I understood why he was nervous. I had told him a bit about Rob and what happened between us, along with how all my friends were on the lookout for red flags. But Luke was a green flag. He had nothing to worry about. So far, the worst things about him were that he pressed his always cold feet up against my legs when we were sleeping and took his hot dogs with ketchup instead of mustard. There'd probably be a short little questioning and possibly a hazing period, but after that, he'd be home free. It was a bit mean for me to feel relieved that Luke was nervous, that it meant he wanted to make a good impression. And I felt touched that he would. All right, which place did you say it was again? The hen house on Wallace Street. I reiterated. Yes, I'll be able to find it then. The hen house was a brick building with green and white striped verandas and wooden tables with that red and white checkerboard picnic cloth over them. All around it was farming memorabilia along with artwork of chickens, chicks, and eggs. I found the place cute and the weather was warm. So the open doors and windows just made this little outing feel even nicer. Do they specialize in chicken or in egg dishes? Luke asked me. Yes, was all I replied. Then a screech pierced my ears and I knew they were here. Anais, there you bloody hell. Jessica. Oh my God. Jessica and Karina had gotten here first, it seemed, already at the table and standing up to greet me. Both of them were gaping at Luke, obviously having recognized him, and he tried to put on a charming smile and greet them with a wave. Hello, Luke began, outstretching his hand. Karina's eyes darted to me, her mouth hung open. Anais Crawford.
Jessica shrieked and grabbed my hand. Come with me.
My friends swarmed me like a pack of seagulls on a fry, tearing me away from Luke's side and spiriting me away. Karina looked at Luke and smiled heavily. Hello. Yes, lovely to meet you. That's our table over yonder. We'll be right back with her. So nice to meet you. Did I say that? I said that. Well, go on. I'd been spirited away to the hallway near the bathrooms, still trying to process what just happened, as Karina grabbed my shoulders, shaking me. Anais, that's Luke Owens, she whisper-shouted.
Yes, I'm quite aware of that fact, I said dizzily, prying her hands off of me.
You're dating Luke Owens, the man who's been on the cover of business magazines, is rich as hell, and owns the best hotel in the city. You're dating that man. Is there another Luke Owens out there? Stop sounding so surprised. My other ex was a popular music artist. That was Robert. He doesn't count anymore. Jessica deadpanned. He's a black mark on your history and should be spoken about like his name alone brings bad luck.
You are very upset. I feel like I should called you before this now. I noted.
I laughed. If it makes you feel better, right now he's being heavily sued, and I already called the person doing it who'll be adding in a restraining order. I told her hesitantly, and Jessica lit up. That does actually make me feel much better about all of this. That's lovely, but back to the matter at hand, Karina butted in. Does he treat you well? Those gossip rags are all lies, and he treats you like a princess. My heart softened at my friend's worried questions, and the minor irritation I felt quickly left. He does. He's very good to me, Karina, and we actually talk, which I like being able to do with my partner. He finds ways to make time for us when he's busy, especially with work. Is the sex good? Jessica asked bluntly, and I choked, wheezing, trying not to lose a lung. That means, yeah. Jessica. All right, he passes for now, and now I can squeal about this, she said, doing just that.
You're dating a celebrity, a real one, not one like Robert, she huffed before lighting up again.
But he's rich and handsome. Oh, it's like you're living a fairy tale romance, and I am here for it. Haha, I'm glad you think so. Now, come on. I feel bad that we left Luke alone for so long.
Oh no, we have 3 more minutes, Jessica said, hand on my shoulder as she checked her phone. What I asked.
It has to do with the others being in on whatever or wherever the hell you met him, in the place we aren't supposed to know about. Among other things, since they have a bit of background knowledge, Vera and River are interrogating him. Oh my God. There's no red flag text yet, so I think we're in the clear. They're doing what? I exclaimed.
Calm down, it's a light interrogation. I think River still feels bad about the thing with Robert. That wasn't her fault, I sighed, rolling my eyes. And Vera.
I honestly just think she's there for the drama of it all. You know, she would have been demanding the play-by-play of everything if you weren't under contract.
Come on, I shoot them back to our table, where lo and behold, Vera and River were there, along with Marcus, who Luke was talking with instead of getting interrogated. I raised a brow at the scene, and River looked at me, almost pouting. They've done business together. No, I gasped, covering my mouth, wanting to laugh.
Anais, they've been talking business since we got here? Vera jokingly complained.
We were supposed to ask him questions about himself, not what kind of shipment of faucets he wants.
Ones that don't make you press your hands against the sink, Jessica said without hesitation as she took her seat. Those ones suck. I'll keep that in mind when I order, Luke said dryly with a smirk. Good. Well, at least one of you approves, I said in amusement. I would like to know you were dating Luke Owens, but I suppose there are worse matches, River sighed.
Now come and sit down. I've already ordered mimosas for all of us. I'll need one to get through this revelation.
Did you know he was with Anais? No, dear. We only do business together. We've kept our private lives very separate until now. But you know the Rico has some of the best gnocchi in the city. It's Luke's favorite food, I told him, and River's favorite dish from there. Marcus smiled. Glad you like it. If you ever want a reservation, it's yours. Luke offered charmingly. Oh, River, is he swaying you to his side? Vera asked, gasping playfully. Maybe. Who's ready for mimosas? Asked the waitress, coming in with a tray full of glasses and a pitcher full of orange juice, another coming with the champagne. Miss, make that a glass of champagne for me right now, River said. Does anyone else know what they want to order? I'm thinking of getting a quitch. Things went better than I could have hoped. I found it hilarious that Luke and Marcus knew each other and seemed to get along. It was nice to see it was not just one of those "I'm polite despite not liking you" kind of relationships. Luke did get questioned when Marcus was no longer a barrier and his girlfriend wanted to grill Luke before our food came, but River grudgingly approved of him afterwards, making Luke dramatically sigh in relief and getting us all to laugh. That reservation might just turn into a double date if things continue to go this well. Luke meshed well with everyone, and after they got over him being a Luke Owens, we had fun eating and drinking together. I knew it would take a bit longer before everyone was completely comfortable with each other. But the brunch made me very hopeful that there would only be good things in the future. I'm glad you have such good friends, Anais. They seem wonderful. Luke told me as he drove me back to my apartment. I had a bit to work on and I left my computer there while Luke had a few graphs to go over back at the hotel. They are. Did you like them? I did, though. River seems to have it out for me. She doesn't have it out for you. I laughed. She's just trying to look out for me. I promise she'll warm up to you. Maybe we should do a dinner date together. Treat her to some of that Greenwichy and win her over. I might just do that. Will it be this hard when I meet your mother? He questioned, both joking and serious, while I hummed. No, I think you'll do just fine. She'll like you once she gets to know you. Oh, but she's a firm believer that a guy should know how to cook, not just know how to work a grill. I'll have to practice to impress her then. The most I can make is a mean sandwich. And I don't think I've ever used a grill in my life. Is that fancy kitchen just for show? Sometimes I have private chefs use it if I have important clients. Ooh, Lava, well, you do have the greatest help you can get right here. And I know all my mother's favorite. I always thought taking cooking lessons together would be fun. Did you know the Lush House offered lessons for pasta making? I'll look into it when I get back then. Who knows, maybe if I find a good gnocchi recipe, I'll become River's best friend. Don't you dare, I gasped dramatically, hand to my heart, and Luke laughed before leaning over and kissing me, which I quickly and happily returned. Yeah, he was gonna be just fine. Chapter 50, another golden ticket. I wheezed as I hauled a heavy box out of the elevator and into my apartment. You know, I could have helped you, Luke said, and I quickly caught my phone before it could slide off of the box along with my mail, canceling the speaker and putting it to my ear. Hush, you have work to do, and seeing as I've been declared a distraction and you're slightly behind, the only muscle you should be using right now is your brain. With that, I shoved the box the rest of the way through the door and into my apartment.
There we go. See, I got this and you got your work. You can do this, baby.
It's less of a matter of can do and more of a matter of will do. He groaned, making me chuckle. Well, if you finish, how about I come over with dinner? I have all the ingredients I need for good cobbler. That sounds delicious. How do you feel about a steak dinner then? Hey, work first, Mr. I said pointedly, but steak does sound good. If you don't text me around 6 that you're done with work though, I'm keeping this cobbler to myself. The cruelty, I suppose. I have no choice but to finish now. Anyways, what did you buy? Buy? Oh, haha. Sorry, I forgot to tell you, Worn Down Stones is being printed, and this is a cut of the first round of copies for me to do what I want with it. I grabbed a pair of scissors, cutting open the box and pulling out one of the books, giggling like mad. It's finally done. It was hard, but I think it really came out good. I'm proud of you, babe. Do I finally get to hear you gush about your story? Now you didn't even tell me who Celia met. I wasn't about to spoil it when I didn't even know the ending, but I suppose a little preview wouldn't hurt. I flipped the book around, reading the synopsis on the back. Celia had returned to her life in the town, but it wasn't how she remembered it. Nothing was. With the after effects of the war and quest still clinging to her, she feels like she's losing herself in a fight she doesn't know how to win. When she meets a woman named Jean, things feel different with her as a friendship hesitantly blooms between the two of them. Celia isn't the only one struggling, though. Will they be able to overcome the past that clings to them, or will they be dragged down? Find out in Worn Down Stone. Here sounds wonderful, said Corey. I hope so, kid, I laughed. Guy Andre won't admit it, but he does like the characters I wrote and would have killed me himself if I ruined their happy ending for the drama of it all. Now that I have the copies, though, I have to finish that list. I still can't believe Joseph Smith was a fan. Daily, I said dreamily. Daily, I've definitely made it if I have a fan like him. Day one. Year, haha. I see where I stand in this relationship. Daily, Corwell, you're a close second, Guy. I said teasingly. What if you forget to send it? I would literally die if I didn't give a copy to him. Luke, my heart wouldn't be able to stand it. I said I would give him one. He's getting an autographed copy, and I'll deliver it in person if I have to. Huh. Oh my, what a gargantuan task for you to accomplish if you do have to go visit him in person. His dry tone made me huff. I could leave your copy here in the cobbler. Not the cobbler, he bemoaned dramatically. I giggled before setting aside the two books. All right, but only because you're cute. Got to go. Good luck, honey. I set down my phone and grabbed a notebook and started to write down my list of people who needed to receive a copy of my book. River, Vera, Karina, and Jessica. Of course, Marcus would need one too. No way was River going to let him read her copy until she finished it. My mom was going to get one in the express mail, or I would receive a very angrily worded call if they went on sale before it arrived. She was not exactly thrilled that I hadn't told her about my summer bachelorette romance, nor that I'd basically hid my boyfriend after the fact. However, after I told her what happened with Rob, her anger was more focused on him than me. And I might have distracted her with Joseph Smith being a fan of my book. Ah, Joseph Smith, you are a lifesaver. He'd also be getting a copy of my book, signed, autographed, and possibly with a fan letter from my mother. But things worked out, thankfully. Luke would get his later today, and Luna already got hers. I hesitated for a moment before penning down Camila's name. She'd been going through it and actually put herself in therapy a few days after she barged her way into my apartment, horribly embarrassed by her action. She'd been doing better, and we texted from time to time, both of us encouraging each other for getting over Rob and whatnot, seeing as we both got burned by the same man, just for various reasons. He really did her dirty, though. Hopefully a book I wrote, which was basically about the process of healing and accepting it, wouldn't be too on the nose. I didn't want to be rude. I'd ask River about it later. She was still judging me for striking up a tentative friendship with Camila, but she'd tell me if I was being rude or not. Andre had shipped me a few dozen books, so there were plenty to give out. But I took a break from making a list to start on my cobbler. Luke wasn't the only one with work. The publishers liked the outline I made for the story inspired by the Lush Experience and wanted me to start on a few test chapters to see if Andre would give it a green check mark and approve of it to go all the way into a full novel. Both me and Luke would be busy soon. The next big holiday season was just around the corner, and he believed he had found a good location for a hotel on the coast. We were talking about either setting aside a day for date night or me possibly getting a little office at the hotel, so we'd be able to spend more time together. Right now, the former would be easier to work with until we'd been dating for a little while longer, since a little office would most likely be a home office sort of deal on Luke's floor in the hotel. Not that I was against that, but yeah, I wanted to be dating a bit longer before we started reaching into anything that was similar to moving in together. Still, that it could happen and that we were talking about, it made me feel stupidly soft and gooey on the inside. Quite like my cobbler as I huffed and shoved it back in the oven. I needed to go a bit longer. This relationship I had with Luke was filled with romance, but also understanding and commitment. And I realized that's what I had wanted all along. Not just passion, but the effort to talk, to learn, to know one another. And Luke gave me that. Haha only took until way after the end of my Lush experience to figure that out. But I did, and I learned because I was experiencing such things to allow me that freedom to discover myself. Once I took my finished cobbler out of the oven and started to clean up, I checked the clock. It was getting close to 6. I'd need to clean up a bit, whether I headed out or not. But as I was passing by the living room and my box of books, I remembered my mail that was sitting haphazardly on the floor next to it. Forgot about that. I quickly picked it up, flipping through it before I realized I had a letter, a very fancy one that looked hand-penned. I recognized the address as where the Lush headquarters was located. That's right, it had been about a week since I last saw Luna, and Ms. Fontaine said, "My gift should arrive." Curiosity got the best of me, and I grabbed a butter knife to use as my letter opener, pulling out the neatly penned letter on expensive gold embossed paper that was done in a rather tasteful Art Deco design on the border. "Dear Anais Crawford, congratulations on the completion of your Lush experience. We're very happy that you were able to find a match through our services and wish you the best with your new partner. As promised, I've included a few gifts for all the trouble you went through with our program and hope it hasn't marred your time with us to a bright future full of love. Sincerely, Angelica Fontaine." Ms. Fontaine had personally written the letter herself, and even though the tone of it was all business, I found it rather thoughtful that she'd take the time to do so. While she was a bit stern and serious, people didn't just start a business about helping people find love unless they were passionate about it themselves. I'd send her a book too. I decided, both volumes. I looked at what she sent, curious as to what gifts could possibly be in such a tiny envelope, and realized one of them was a familiar gold color. It was a blank golden ticket with a little sticky note on it. "Plus, if your Lush experience hasn't turned you off, then we'd like to offer you this. A golden ticket completely covered by us for whoever you wish. Just send us a name and number, and we'll eagerly await for them to start their Lush experience." Wow, that was very generous, especially since I knew just how expensive these things were now. I didn't need a second Lush experience, but I knew someone who might. I couldn't help but smile. It was time to pay it forward a little bit and help someone else get a chance at love. My phone buzzed with a text from Luke, and I grinned even wider. It seemed that he managed to finish his work after all. The call came next, and I happily answered. "So steak dinner tonight." Then he asked, continuing our conversation from before, and I giggled. That sounds good. Should I pick up a pint of vanilla ice cream for the cobbler before I get there? We have enough at the hotel. When can I expect you? 7:30. I'll need a bit of time to clean up here and let that cobbler cool. I'll see you soon then. Don't be late. I haven't been late yet, and don't you jinx me. Ha 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 ha. All right, bye then, love you. Love you too. I covered my mouth, afraid my smile would split my cheeks from how wide it was as I heard Luke fumble with his phone. All right, love you. And then he hung up. I could barely stifle my giggles while my heart felt ready to burst. Oh, Wes! We were ha. Oh gosh, I really did love that man. I put down the letter and ticket to hurry and clean up. I definitely send that ticket out later, but for now, I was going to get ready for a date and get ready for a fantastic night and a fantastic future with an incredible man. This part has ended. Thank you for listening. If you would like to continue listening to the next part, please let me know by leaving a comment